Hi there. Sorry, I was taking care of some serious business. Speaking of serious business, please enjoy this clip from Mornings with Mike Winters, which, by the way, you can watch the show in its entirety at roswellstalkfm.com.
And joining us in the studio this morning, Justin Ellis from Builders Do It Center and Ross Horner from PVT. Gentlemen, good morning. How are you doing today?
Outstanding, Mike. How are you doing this
Doing
morning?
well. Happy New Year.
It is.
You made it in, no problems. And
Thankfully.
how was the commutes for you guys? Any issues or anything you guys saw?
Mine was a little slippery. Ross had to come up from Artesia, I think he got the worst of it.
Yeah, it was a little slippery this morning.
So where did it coming up from Artesia? Where was that line from like no snow to no snow? And this was probably about an hour ago. So
Yeah, it was about at the Dexter cutoff.
about the Dexter cutoff there. Okay. So, and that's what I've been telling folks. If you are traveling outside of Roswell, go to nmroads.com. It's the NMDOT's website. It's probably the most thorough as far as latest road conditions. But I'll tell you right now, if you're going south, like you said, you're probably not too bad once you get towards Artesia and point south. If you're going north, you're probably gonna hit some issues. I know 285, once you hit out of this area and hit towards Klein's Corners, it's all red condition, which is what do they call it, hazardous or dangerous. I don't remember the nomenclature, but it's not good.
Yeah, so, stay home. That's what it means.
Exactly. But I saw your video this morning on Facebook, Justin, and you guys are fully stocked and ready to roll with snow shovels and ice melt and all that good stuff.
We've been ready since before Halloween, so yeah, finally we got a little winter weather. But yes, we are in fantastic condition with snow shovels and ice melt and heaters and all that good stuff. So come by and get stocked up and start digging out of our unexpected little heavy dusting, I would call it.
Yeah. Well, I think the shovels and things you could probably get away with not having, but the ice melt's probably the good stuff to have.
I would definitely be putting down ice melt, especially since it's getting colder as the day goes on. I know we had a little ice at our place this morning, so we're already salting down our driveways and approaches and stuff to make sure that nobody has a slip and fall in the parking lot. So if you have a commercial building, I would highly recommend you come get a few bags of ice melt and start putting them out.
There you go. And if you have a pickup, maybe swing by, I don't know, the concrete section or some places got big, heavy bags that you can buy.
Yeah, Play Sand is a fantastic call. We would be more than happy to load you up with something heavy. Concrete block works well.
Yeah, all that stuff, that weight down that back, especially if you're not four-wheel drive. Pickup trucks are great when they're four-wheel drive in the snow. Awful when they're not.
Yeah, I used to live in Alto. I was our outside sales guy up there, and I had a two-wheel drive pickup at the time. And so my winter procedure was in about September. I'd come down to the store and load the bed of the pickup up with 4x8 by 16 concrete blocks, one layer deep, and that was my pickup bed till about May.
Yeah.
So
and it works. I mean, you get some weight on those back wheels, you're okay.
I rarely had issues.
Yeah. So do that, but. If you need anything, whatever, shovels to ice melt to whatever, you guys got them covered to get that taken care of today.
Absolutely.
So come on by. Open and ready for you.
Yes.
Very good. Well, our main topic of discussion today is not the snow so much, but security. Talking about home security in your homes, and that's why Ross is here from PVT, because one of the many services PVT provides is home security. And but we're also talking about the little things, too, you can do in your house to kind of cover your basis. And, because I think people get, and that's a good thing, because, most people live in neighborhoods that are relatively quiet and not, they don't, not they're sending leave their doors unlocked at night, but they don't think of, needing extra security and things like that until something happens generally. But so I think people get a little lax on their thought on that kind of stuff. So we're just kind of reminding you, hey, it's better to do the stuff you need to get done and not need to worry about it than not have it and then something happens.
Absolutely. And Ross has got some interesting stats and facts on burglaries in the U.S. People don't realize how common a crime this is. I don't know what the tendency is among nationally how many burglaries occur, but it's a shocking number. If you start asking folks, most people have either know or know someone who has been the victim of a burglary, and you can really take some steps to protect your property and avoid those damages. So
sure,
that's right. It really is. It's and it's one of those things where people don't think about it. It's you have a security system and you don't arm it, why have a security system?
Sure.
I mean, Justin's going to go through this lighting and locks and stuff to protect your home. If you have a security, all you're doing is turn the light on to let them in. So let's arm your system. Why not? If you have it and you're paying a monthly fee, something's wrong with it, give us a call. We'll get it fixed. If it's not an alarm, we'll put one in there that does work.
And I know you guys have different levels and things, so if you want something that's like a basic alarm system up to more elaborate cameras and things like that, you guys got them covered
For sure.
with
We
that.
can do anything like that. Anything security-wise, we can cover it, for sure.
What for you personally? You recommend? I mean, how far should someone go? I mean, are you good enough with just your basic alarms when someone's coming in to notify authorities and things like that, or should people really think about the cameras and the other technologies that are available now?
Well, I think a basic alarm is number one step. You
Okay.
should always have an alarm. Just depend on what you want to do and how you want it. If you want to actually see what's going on, that's where the cameras and stuff come into play.
Okay.
But anything, as long as you're protecting your house some way,
Sure.
is the best that you can do.
Well, I know with like security cameras and things like that, that probably increases your odds of apprehending someone that broke in because criminals are people of opportunity. They'll know when you're. I mean, I say the good ones generally are casing joints. They'll know your patterns. They know when you're not home.
Sure.
They'll know when you're at home, and they'll probably not come by when you're at home. They'll visit you during the day. I know most people think break-ins are at night, but I think most of them actually probably occur while we're all at work, generally. So
For sure.
the cameras help with that. Hey, if you get footage of them and actual, that helps the police apprehend these folks, because that's probably the biggest thing. Is a lot of times these folks, most of them probably don't end up getting caught unless something blatant gets shown on video, or they leave a wallet behind or something stupid
sure.
like that.
For sure. Yeah, and that's what, on the stats and facts, most burglaries happened between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m., so that's why you're at work.
Yeah.
And most of the time, the burglars are from your area.
Sure.
I mean, that's a proven fact. So.
Yeah. It's everyone thinks there's like these, like you said, these people maybe just come through town and clean your house and go, but not necessarily. It's I would guess that probably most burglars are people of opportunity. They're it's kind of like at Christmas time in cars and such. They talk about all the robberies in cars because people know there's lots of merchandise generally in people's cars and things like that. Same kind of opportunity. They'll know during the day most people aren't at work or at home. They're at work, so that's when they're going to do it. And like I said, some of them will do their homework. They'll kind of watch and things. And
For sure.
And that's why I always talk about with the neighborhood watch folks why it's so important to have that kind of thing. So when people go out of town on vacation, there's people looking out for you.
Yeah, for sure. And that's and not just alarms. I mean, it gets really back to your outside your house, getting lights up to make sure that it's not dark, because that's what burglars like. They like it dark.
Sure.
Make sure everything's locked up. That's why I think it's really good that I'm here with Justin and him going over the light part of it and then the locks and that part of stuff. That's just as good as the alarm system inside if you have your outside covered too.
Sure.
Absolutely. It's about creating a hard target. You look at most criminals, the average criminal's not particularly hardworking. They're not looking for something they have to work at. They're looking for the easiest opportunity. So the key is really to think about, how do I make my home a little more difficult to enter for somebody? And you're really looking for a belt and suspenders approach. You want to have layers of security. So you want to make sure that your home is well lit and visible, which is why we look at things like using motion sensor floodlights, which work very, very well because they alert the neighbors that something's going on. If somebody's trying to get into the home, they'll give you a heads up if you're in the home. Plus, they're just convenient. If you're coming home late at night, you don't have to leave a light burning all night long. It's only going to come on when you need it.
Sure.
Which is really a great investment and helps you save a little energy.
And they're pretty easy to install. They're not really difficult to
If
do.
you have an existing light fixture, it's very, very easy to replace it with something with a motion detector on it. In fact, in many cases, if you have an existing floodlight, you can retrofit just a motion sensor onto that very reasonably and very inexpensively. And it's a good basic electrical project if you feel comfortable taking that on. If not, it's something that an electrician can do for a reasonable cost.
Sure.
So from there, you really want to look at physical security. So making sure that you have good locks in place, that you have deadbolts that are going to help prevent somebody from kicking a door in, and that you're using the other features of your home. So making sure that it's tough to get into or up to windows, and that you have gates and fences that are doing their job and keeping people out of areas like backyards where there's not a lot of visibility, and so they could take the time to get in a more difficult lock or through a door that's better secured. And that's when the security system really comes into play, because ultimately there's no way to prevent every physical break-in. You know, one of the things we'll often talk about is you look at patio doors, whether they're sliding patio doors or French doors. They're an easy point of entry, but they're also a great feature that people want in their homes. You know, everybody wants that big open look, and it's important. I'm by no means discouraging people from having those.
Sure.
But it's kind of funny. We sell a lot of big patio doors, and people say, well, how's the lock system on this? Well, it's a great lock system. It's a multi-point lock and all this and that and the other. And you go, but we need to keep in mind that the thing's got a 2-foot wide, 6.5-foot tall piece of glass in the middle that anybody with a rock and 2 feet can get through if they put their mind to it, which is where the security system and what PVT can do really comes into play. And so that was why you want to have those layers of security.
You know, and I'm sure you guys seen it. I remember growing up as a kid, you know, we had the sliding glass door too, and we actually had the house break in, and that's how they got in. But from then on, you just get we also had as added measure, you take that broomstick and slice it into 2-3 foot section there, and you stick it in there. Now, granted, you're going to forget about it, and every time you try to open the door, you're going to whack that thing. But it keeps that door from opening at least. Right. And so I would imagine, too, like you said, you were talking about, you know, you can have the best locks in the world and things like that. But if it's a daytime deal where they know they've got hours of time and opportunity, that's where the security system come in, because they'll, you know, eventually they can get through the lock or break a window or whatever they need to do to enter your home. But with the security system, then all of a sudden where they thought they had time, it's no longer a case, because police will be there pretty quickly after that point.
They'll be in the house and no one will even know.
Yeah.
So,
and I imagine too, for folks that haven't had them in a while, because that was the thing, you know, 20 years ago, whatever, these alarm systems, and there was all these false alarms and things like that. The systems nowadays are much better, much more accurate, I guess you say. There are less false alarms, more things like that. The technology's there and things like that. So if it's been a while and you've been one of those folks like, I had one 20 years ago and I spent more time answering false alarms than actual ones, nowadays it's different.
And you can compare that to your cell phones back then. Look at what the cell phones were now and look at them now. I mean, that's the change in alarm systems. I mean, it's just night and day change now.
And a lot of them too, right, are not just security. I mean, you're talking like they're attached in with like fire and carbon dioxide and all these other. So they're not only just for security, but for safety as well, and health issues too.
And then insurance. It saves you on insurance if you have those too. So
very good.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Everyone likes that part.
And really, you can now integrate. It's kind of funny. We're seeing a lot of the technologies that have become very common in cars and on the cell phone are now coming to the home. And you see things like Google Home and Alexa and some of these other devices that are intended to allow you to voice control things in your home. Well, now you can integrate those with things like your security system, your video cameras, if you've decided you want cameras. And we're really moving towards this idea of the smart home or home automation. And you can integrate all of these different functions. And so now we have lock systems. Schlage offers a system that allows you to control that from your smartphone. And I believe you could probably integrate that with the Honeywell systems that PVT offers. So now you have the ability not only to secure your home, but if you need to allow someone in your home, a dog sitter or somebody that's going to do some service work on your home while you're not there, you have the ability to control that remotely.
Yeah.
And we're moving very rapidly towards where that's going to be common. Those costs are coming down so rapidly. And it's pretty amazing. It's pretty neat stuff. The geek in me and the construction guy in me really kind of come together on this one.
Sure.
And so you can see some cool stuff. And we've actually partnered with PVT. We have outfitted, we have a small display home inside of our store here in Roswell. And if you've not seen it, that we used to show off doors and windows and some other products. PVT's actually come in and retrofit one of their systems, including cameras, into that little mini home.
Okay.
So if you're interested in looking at what a modern security system looks like, come on down, look at our system. Our people are trained and are learning about that system, so we can kind of show you some of the features, and you can really get a feel for how it works. How does it sound when you open a door? How do you set those features? What's that look like? And we can help get you in touch with PVT in order to get those technologies into your home, whether that's a retrofit or if you're building a new home. You can really, at a very reasonable cost, put these into your new home.
Wow. And do it cheaply. Like, that's another thing, because I'm sure people hear this and they think, well, what does that cost? Thousands, millions of dollars here? And no, it's actually very affordable.
It's really coming down in the last few years. It's
Yeah.
really, like Justin's saying, I mean, it's what everything's growing to. So everybody's having to come down their price and to make it realistic for everybody else
Sure.
to be able to afford.
Absolutely.
It's no different than for those that bought their first VCR. And then when the DVD rolled around, you could get one for about $20 kind of deal. And the same thing. It's the same. The technology's there too.
Yeah, the cost of electronics continues to come down, and there's so much of this that used to be a physical machine that's now virtualized, and it's allowing them to really bring that cost down.
Do you guys have the issue, like when you talk about computers and things, and it seems like whenever a person goes out and buys a computer, and then it seems like a month later it's old technology. Do you guys run into those same issues in security where it's like man, this is the latest system, and then like 2 months later it's like now they got a bigger and better one?
Oh yeah, you have to stay on top of it for sure.
Yeah,
you have to make sure that you have the latest, the greatest, and the best.
But the good news is generally, like if you buy the most modern thing today, it's going to serve its needs for
sure.
years and things
For
like
sure.
that. Unless you're just one of those folks that's got to have the latest.
The latest and
I know
greatest.
some folks like that. It's they're the ones that had like laser disc players and probably still, even though no one else has them, because they're like, this is the best one yet. They still held on to it. But now, as far as terms like that, when we go, going with the high tech and going with the security systems, but going low tech as well, doing the little things too. Like we were talking about locks, for instance, and I think this is probably the one that people sleep on the most, as far as your door locks and your house locks, and how often you should change those and things like that. Because I imagine there's folks that when they bought the house 20 years ago, they have the same locks on that house that they probably had 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I did some studying on the internet, and 34% of all burglars go through the front door or an unlocked window.
Oh, wow.
So that's 34% of your burglaries.
So they prey on the absent-mindedness of the homeowner.
They prey on the unlocked doors and unlocked windows, and I think that's a great opportunity for them to upgrade their locks. And
Sure.
Absolutely. And you really want to think about rekeying your locks on a regular basis. I wouldn't recommend doing it yearly or even every 4 or 5 years. But, if you've purchased the home, you need to look at rekeying those locks. It's a relatively inexpensive thing to do. You can either have a locksmith come out and do it on site, or if you take the locks off, you can actually bring them into one of our stores, and we do them for about $10 a cylinder, which is a pretty reasonable cost to be able to have a new key controlling that lock. The other thing to think about is, lock technology is changing as far as how we control locks. I mentioned ones that are controlled by smartphones earlier. Keypad-controlled locks are becoming very common and have come down significantly in cost. That's actually what I have in my own home. And they're not any more secure than a traditional key lock, but what they are is they're more convenient. And because they're more convenient, you're more likely to use them.
Sure.
Which kind of goes back to the whole, if you don't bother to set the alarm, they're absolutely useless. Well, if you have a lock set and a deadbolt, but you don't bother to lock the deadbolt because you don't want to mess with it, you lost the key, it's a different key than the door lock,
right,
it's going to provide absolutely no value.
Sure.
So you really want to make sure you're using every tool you have at your disposal before you go investing in lots of other things. So if you have a current security system, set it. If you have deadbolts,
use them.
Use them. And take the steps that'll let you use them. If you have a gate, make sure the gate is locked.
Sure.
One of the biggest things people forget is they think about the home, but they forget about outbuildings, the backyard. I was the victim of a burglary a number of years ago, and they broke into my garage in my shop, which is detached from my home. And, if I'd had a security system, I probably wouldn't have thought to alarm that. Well, to be honest with you, I've got a fair amount of tools because I'm a tool geek.
Sure.
There was more property in there than there was in the house. And I was single at the time, so it was pretty much the TV in the house, and everything else I had that was worth anything was in the garage. So,
but your priorities were like the beer in the fridge is important.
Yeah, exactly, which they did not get, but they got my tools, which I was pretty pissed about in hindsight. And they did a really good job. I told somebody it's amazing. They must have. I'm pretty sure they came in right after I left, so they definitely cased the joint.
Sure.
They cleaned that garage out. There was more stuff in the garage when I moved into the house than after these guys were done.
Wow.
I mean, they cleaned off the nails on the shelf and the caulk. I mean, it was a thorough job. I actually have some appreciation for the work ethic of whoever did this. Can't say they were lazy. They may have been criminals, but they were not lazy. So, but you really want to think about those outbuildings.
Sure.
And hindsight being what it was at the time, I had a low fence. I just had a 4-foot tall chain link fence, and I just had a deadbolt or a hasp lock with a padlock on the door.
Which they call bolt cutters about 5 seconds.
They cut the hasp before they cut the lock.
Yeah.
Because I had a very cheap hasp on it. In hindsight, that wasn't very bright. The hasp I have on it now would have taken a little more work. The other factor I've really taken care of is I've made that gate much taller.
Sure.
It's a 6-foot tall gate, so you can't see what's behind it, and it's locked from inside. So now they wouldn't have had the ability to get to that, and they wouldn't have had the ability to have time behind that gate to get in, get the stuff loaded, and get out.
Sure.
They would have had to have spent time at the gate, which I think would have very much discouraged them and probably prevented the break-in. So you really want to think about those layers of security like we were talking about.
Sure.
You know, I had a tip in my home where, like, my front door and my back door, like you're talking about the deadbolts, and make sure you're using the deadbolts. But say, like, my front door has a little window in it, and through the window there, and my back door is kind of like a kitchen back door. It's like a half door with a window in the front. Not only having a deadbolt and using it, but I was suggested don't use a deadbolt that's just got the little knob you turn to open it. Get one that has a key, and don't leave the key in it, because they break that window, they just turn that knob, and that deadbolt's useless. Where at this point, that deadbolt's still functioning if they break that window, especially if your window's not large enough to fit through, but
Absolutely.
large enough to access your doorknob and things like that. So just as
Absolutely.
an add little bonus, using the key ones as opposed to little.
Which are a double cylinder versus a single cylinder deadbolt.
Okay.
So most new construction homes, you will see only single cylinder deadbolts because it's a safety factor. Now, if you have children in the home or older folks in the home and they're going to be home alone, I would highly recommend not putting double-cylinder deadbolts in.
Okay.
Because what you're doing at that point is you're trading safety for life security.
Gotcha.
Or life safety for security. And if, God forbid, there were a fire or something, that's going to make it more difficult to get
Usually
out.
those are at night. No one has their keys on them generally when that's
Exactly.
going on. So.
Not to say that you shouldn't use double-cylinder deadbolts, but you need to kind of weigh the safety factor there.
Gotcha. So if you're just a married couple, no kids, things like that, maybe you can get away with it.
Absolutely.
Great time.
Yeah,
But,
or maybe that's when you leave your key in the deadbolt, as if you're at home.
Gotcha. Okay.
You just want to keep those in mind. That's why oftentimes you will not see those double-cylinder deadbolts. You can't use them in new construction homes.
Okay. Well, they're at my house I'm selling.
Yeah. Well, you're not new construction, so you're good.
They can come see you and change the locks on
I
that.
would recommend they do, actually. So, I mean, for God's sakes, who wants Mike running around with a key to their house?
That's right. Well,
So.
trust me, you can have it.
Actually, you want to know a kind of a funny story here? When I bought my home, I didn't change the locks out from the folks that had it before. They were personal friends of mine. I wasn't real concerned about it.
Yeah.
Well, moved the first load of stuff in. I go to do something else, come back to the house, and there's some stuff I put in the cabinets, and it's sitting out on the counter. And so I'm like, okay, what's going on here? So I called the folks I had purchased the home from, and I said, hey, were you guys back at the house? She goes, oh, my God, my mother. Her mother had come over to the house and had started cleaning stuff out of the cabinets thinking that they had left it.
Oh, wow.
And yet I still didn't change the locks until much later, which, again, I was a single guy. I wasn't that bright.
Well, too bad she didn't do any cooking and leave stuff. And
Yeah,
be like,
exactly. She's
you
pretty good cook, too.
I brought a ham and left it in the fridge.
No,
All
I
right.
guess she actually figured it out because she had called the daughter and said, hey, you guys left some stuff in the counter? She goes, that's not ours. We're not there anymore. It's Justin's. And she freaked out and left.
You're breaking and entering.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm calling the cops.
That's right.
But literally, depending on your budgets and everything, there's always something you can do. I know if you're talking home security with security systems, it's same thing there. If you have a lot of money you want to spend, you can go high tech. You can go. Do you guys even do the? I know it's the newer technology with the doorbell cameras and all that stuff, where you can actually answer your door without being at home and that kind of stuff. They can.
Yeah, we can do all that stuff too.
Gotcha. Which
Depending
is
on what your budget is, like you say, Mike. It's all what you want to see and how much you want to spend. Is
gotcha.
What it is.
Well, I guess that'd been handy around the holidays because everyone's getting a lot of packages delivered and things like that.
For sure.
Ring the doorbell. Just leave it up the side there. Which, and then of course, like you said, come by Builders Do It Center if you, if you need to get new locks or you need to rekeyed, or maybe you're thinking about switching your lights over to motion sensors. Like you said, all that's easy to do, especially if it's a light fixture already in place. It's probably
That's a very, very easy project.
5-minute job pretty much. And like you said, anytime at first someone might think like, well, that's kind of, how much of a deterrent is that really? But in actuality, it's a very big one because not so much that the the burglar knows that doesn't tell them you're home or not, but there's some change. It's drawing attention to whatever they're doing. And maybe your neighbor's out back, or maybe that triggers the dogs next door to start barking.
Exactly. And a lot of this, the goal is to make that potential intruder uncomfortable.
Sure.
Anything you can do to make their life slightly more difficult, slightly uncomfortable, is going to make them less likely to enter the home.
What about like
there's so many of those houses out there that don't have it.
Sure.
Yeah, they're going to
why
go
not
looking
be the
for
best on
somebody
the
else.
block?
Exactly.
It's a little bit of that situation, the old story of the two guys that are in the woods and they see a bear coming, and the one guy stops and starts taking off his shoes and lacing his running shoes up. And the other guy says, "What are you putting those on for? There's no way you're going to outrun the bear." And he looks at him, he says, "I don't have to outrun the bear. I just have to outrun you."
Exactly.
That's kind of the deal here. You just have to outrun the neighbors.
Just make it as hard as possible so they move on and not look at it as not worth the effort to do it.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you about because I don't know if you see these as much anymore. You do in hotels, but like the old school locks with the chain and the slide chain, and so you can open the door about an inch. I mean, is that still popular and used, or is that kind of gone the way of the dodo?
No, they're still around. I would say they're less common than they used to be.
Okay.
But definitely still something that if you're concerned about having a little more security when you're in the home, especially if you're the type that wants to be able to answer the door but not open the door fully.
Sure.
A lot of those limited opening devices are a really, really good investment. They're very inexpensive.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this, too, since we're talking security. When it comes to front doors and things, I mean, you can go the gamut with the big decorative, more glass, more better. But in terms of security, what's generally the way to go? Solid doors without windows and just the peepholes? Or
Less glass is always safer.
Okay.
For a variety of reasons. Heavier is better. And beyond that, pick what you like.
Gotcha.
If security is your biggest concern, avoid glass. If you just want to be aware of how secure it is, you want to go for something that has glass in it that's not going to be so big that it's a full piece of light, a full light glass, where it essentially can become a door with the use of a crowbar.
Gotcha.
That's the key thing to avoid there.
Really, and I'm thinking, too, if you do go with glass, I know a lot of front doors you see have it at the very top of the door, and it's like a
Absolutely.
half moon or just a couple of rectangles. If you want something that brings in a little light, maybe lean towards that direction, because that obviously they can't do much. And even they break those, they short of putting a crowbar or something and yanking the whole door out with a truck or something.
Yeah, and in that case, you're really not any different than having a solid door.
Yeah.
The other thing to think about is adding things like side lights. Go with a solid door and having windows adjacent to the door, but space them out so that they're not so close that you could reach a deadbolt by breaking through that. So there's some options to get around that.
Gotcha. Or just don't put them on the side that the doorknob is, basically.
That's another great way, is doing a single-sided side light and doing it on the hinge side of the door.
Okay. But again, if you have any questions about any of that kind of stuff, when it comes to lock stuff, they can come by Builders and ask any questions. They'll put you in the right direction. If folks want to learn more about security systems and things at PVT, Ross, what's the best way to get a hold of somebody?
You can either go by Roswell Do It Center, or you can call PVT at 748-1241.
Okay. And then you can probably go online, too, and look at everything.
Most definitely.
Is it PVT.com?
Yes, sir.
And then you can go there and probably get a good, at least some information on the different levels of security. And
most definitely.
Maybe get you some information so when you do to talk to someone there at PVT, you kind of go in, kind of knowing what you want, and they can probably customize and go from there. Because I'm sure every system's not going to be perfect for everybody, but you guys can, we can do this, but then we'll put this in because this is
for sure. We'll do a site survey and do something customized just for each individual family.
And that would be helpful just for the fact that maybe you're not aware of all the breaches in your property and thinking maybe you didn't think about it. It's like, I didn't think that was a security breach, and your folks come in or and then look at it, so that could be a potential area we can do something to fix that.
For sure.
Because I know most of us probably don't think in that mindset. Some do, but most of us probably don't think about it. And
most
you guys
people
do.
Have more to worry about. They got kids chasing kids around and dogs and everything else. So.
And that's the thing too, is balancing that functionability versus security. We were talking like those locks earlier. You can make this thing Fort Knox, but at the end of the day, is that going to work for you just doing your average everyday life here? So there's a balance there. You just need to find it, and your folks as well as the folks at Builders Do It Center can find that balance for you too.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Sure. Is there anything we missed? Anything we skipped, or anything we just got sidetracked on?
No, I think we hit the high points.
I did too.
Perfect. Again, If you follow or go to the Builders Do It Center YouTube page, you can find any of our previous home improvement discussions, anywhere from painting to building decks to choosing the right tile and flooring and everything. We've got quite a choosing the right contractor. We've got a whole cornucopia of discussions and topics there. So
absolutely.
And now we were talking. You and I were talking earlier. Now that I'm doing a move thing, we may have some fun with my own projects here. And
absolutely, Mike's going to be our guinea pig.
I'm going to turn this segment into what's next to fix at Mike's house. Very good. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Be careful. Drive safe today, and we'll see you next time. Okay.
All right, Mike.
Thanks. Appreciate it.